Left in Kentucky, the podcast of indivisible Northern Kentucky. And hello, everybody. We're back again for another episode of Left in Kentucky. With me this week is Amy Ferguson.
Hello, everyone.
And the lovely and talented Ann Dickerson was not able to join us this week.
We miss you, Ann.
We miss you, Ann. We have a special guest coming up today, as we usually try to do, Mr. Jeff Grammer, who is running for State House Rep. I believe that's in District 35, if memory serves, down towards Louisville. Don't quote me on the district number. I'll look that up later and make sure I get it right. So we're looking forward to speaking to him. In the meantime, as usual, we have our weekly feature of cow patties and bull horns. So, not as usual, nothing going on, right?
Right. Slow news days, it's like, don't even need to pay attention.
Yep. So last week, obviously, the General Assembly wrapped up sine die, and the end of business. They came back and overrode every single one of Governor Beshear's vetoes.
Are you shocked?
Not really. Disappointed, but not shocked.
Right.
So those Republicans have to stand up for their values. So speaking of Republican values, Amy, why don't you tell us about your Cow Patty Awards this week?
Yeah, that's a great segue to my Cow Patty Awards. And, I'm going to do two because the lovely Ann Dickerson is not with us. So I would feel remiss if I didn't, throw one in there for her.
Fair enough.
And luckily, I have just the two to pick. And, number one is Rep. Lewis. Oh, my goodness. It was hours after General Assembly had called.
Wasted no
they
time.
Were done,
Speaking of wasted.
He was picked up for DUI. What an example to the rest of Kentucky he is.
Yeah.
Well, and then when you think that, it just can't get any worse, then we've got Rep. Goforth, also from Laurel County, who decides that he's going to commit acts of domestic violence, including attempted strangulation, which ironically has just become a felony in Kentucky, which he voted for that. So that seems a little ironic and appropriate. So my cow patties go to those sterling examples of our state representatives from Laurel County. But I will like to give a little bullhorn there to Sheriff Root there in Laurel County because he conducted himself professionally, and we didn't see any of this good old boy nonsense of sweeping these kind of things under the rug. So I appreciate that sheriff there in Laurel County doing his duty by his constituents.
Well done. Well done. What was the sheriff's name again?
Root, I believe.
Root. Sheriff Root. Oh, good. So yes, we haven't even been out of General Assembly for a week, and already two Republican representatives in trouble with the law there.
It's sad.
Yeah, that's the way that goes. So let's see. My Cow Patty Awards goes to the group of folks who have decided to protest quarantining. Yeah, so, they, the group of people have decided that, quarantining is enough, and so they need to show up and protest with their guns. Not sure what that has to do with it. But anyway, I guess if you get coronavirus, you can, in order to not get coronavirus, you can shoot the virus. I guess that's the way they think of that, right?
I'm not exactly sure what the guns are for.
Okay.
Maybe we should ask.
Yeah. So anyway, protesting that they need to open up the businesses and get back to work because everybody has the right to work. The big irony of it was seeing them with with signs about it's their body, their choice.
I know.
So apparently people on the right
Right.
have now become pro-choice.
I know it's refreshing to see, isn't it?
Yeah, this is just this world keeps. I still think that we've been passed to some alternate universe.
The thing with this cow patty is, you guys want to get crap on your boots, that's your choice. But don't be dragging that shit around my house.
Yeah, and here's so it's being put together by the protests are being put together by a couple of organizations that were founded by the Koch brothers, the same people that brought you ALEC and the Heritage Foundation and other such wonderful places as that.
Irony. Yeah.
They in the same day these Facebook groups popped up promoting across the country, promoting these protests. So it's under the guise of a grassroots movement, but it's very
It's
clearly
astroturfing.
yeah,
I believe
astroturfing.
is the term.
And apparently, two of the guys that are involved, and I wish I could remember the names right now. I can't remember the names right now. But anyway, two of them are involved in a pro-gun group that their stance is the NRA has grown too soft.
Oh,
So
okay.
they are to the right of the NRA.
All right. Well, sad. What can I say? I almost feel sorry for these people that they must derive their happiness for such a shallow place. I
Yeah,
have no problem with firearms, that. It's just when you derive your only happiness from that, it's worrisome.
yeah. And speaking of gun fans, gun fanatics, I want to. I guess I'm doing a second cow patty because I can because I have the button.
Do
Uh,
it.
a person posting on the Boone County neighborhood group last week, complaining about Bashir and denying us our constitutionally
Yes.
protected right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he goes on in this post. This is on a public post on Facebook in this group, that saying that by these actions, unconstitutional acts on the part of Andy Bashir, the Constitution protects us and gives us the authority to eliminate him by any means necessary via the second.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that poor guy.
yeah. So clearly a threat, a not so veiled
Right.
threat. It was reported, and it was being investigated last I heard. So,
I'm sure that they will weasel themselves out of it.
yeah,
Um, but the fact that that sort of sentiment is around is so worrisome. It's just the right word to the right person that's just unstable enough to act on those kind of things. Somebody's going to get hurt. Um,
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah. And it's not like, it's not like, it's not even related to guns. I don't understand where the guns come into it. And
Right.
it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with protecting us all from a virus. And
Yeah, global pandemic. It's not
yeah,
something minor. I think also people don't understand that, they're not seeing, food shortages, and they're not seeing the hospitals overrun and a lot of people dying. So they're like, this is no big deal. When they don't realize is that we don't have those things because of the precautions that we're taking, because of the steps that we're taking.
exactly.
So
It's
You
working.
know, that's the disconnect I think that people just aren't getting. So,
Yeah, that's why.
and also in relation to those Facebook posts, I did hear that Facebook is starting to take down some of those posts about protests. So if you do see one, guys out there, listeners, report it to Facebook because it is dangerous. People going out, I don't want the protesters to get sick either. I don't want anybody to get sick.
Yep,
So
agreed, agreed. So, so anyway, that's our cow patties and our bullhorn for this week, and keep up with what happens with those. We'll definitely be keeping our eye out.
we sure will.
And we're here talking now with our guest this week, Jeff Grammer, who's running for Kentucky House District 36. Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So you're running for Kentucky House District in District 36. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run?
Yeah. Well, first off, District 36 is the south and southeastern part of Jefferson County. It's the largest geographic area in the county itself for a state house seat. Kind of runs from about the LaGrange Road and Gene Snyder area, kind of all the way down to the county border at that point, and a little bit into Oldham County as well. So that's just kind of how that breaks out from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I used to live in that district.
I'm
by
sorry.
the way. I used to live in that district, by the way.
Oh, did you now? Oh, awesome.
Yep. Just FYI.
That's great. There's really three major things that kind of prompted me to run this time around, which is, we still have the three major things of retirement security and pay equity. Public education is still key to our state's future. And then finally, we really need, especially in this day and age, especially in terms of what's going on with the current health crisis that we have, new ideas for challenges of a new economy going forward.
Excellent. So what kind of ideas are you thinking? Let's talk about the new economy for a little bit.
Well, what's been put in place, for example, so far, and we just before we came on, we were kind of talking about some of those things. Like, what does the new economy look like once we come out of the current health crisis that we're in? How do we look at putting people back to work and putting businesses back to work in a safe way that actually also helps start to grow our economy in that regard? For example, when we open up the businesses, do we go forward with businesses saying, you know what, maybe you go to kind of a 1 week on, 1 week remote type of structure where you have people coming in and staggering your workforce a little bit to kind of put those type of things in play.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like we were talking before, even with our school structures, with that, maybe we go to split sessions where we have sessions in the morning and in the afternoon to kind of also split the teams, which actually has some other benefits from that standpoint.
Right.
Those are the types of things that we need to look at. Just different ideas to bring into place for the different challenges that we're going to have going forward, because this health crisis, not just in terms of what we're doing with a new economy, in terms of a digital and a global economy in general, but how we approach this going forward, it's going to take innovative ideas for our state to move forward and grow our economy, not those old ideas and methods of the past that have been proven failures over the years.
Interesting. That's one of the arguments, I hear people talk about, especially when they talk about coal and energy and stuff like that. I mean, historically, Kentucky was on the frontier of energy production in the country. That's why we that and our coal reserves kind of made us at the time, the bleeding edge of power generation in the country. And rather than staying on the leading edge of power generation and looking towards, okay, how are we going to power our country in the future, and how can we be remain the leader in energy in Kentucky, we just keep looking back to, well, let's just stick with coal. And that doesn't preserve us a future spot in the future economy.
Yeah, exactly. And to dovetail on that in terms of the energy production, but it's also then creating a much larger structure for bridging that digital divide, especially in our rural communities that we have out there that are proving, especially right now in this day and age, how far behind we are. I mean, there was just a report in terms just this past week how Kentucky has basically a 19% unemployment rate based upon the people that have filed for unemployment. And that just shows how far behind we are in developing our economy to deal with the digital infrastructure that we need to have to push us forward.
Yeah, and that was one of the really disturbing things that came out of one of the many disturbing things that came out of this year's General Assembly was cutting the funding for the broadband throughout the state.
Yeah.
Very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And we've also seen just again to dovetail on that, the lack of just true investment in public good and community first based research for things like our public health departments and just general research in general. By defunding those types of things, we end up being behind the curve in all sorts of other avenues as a result.
Excellent, excellent. Now I know your background is in you have background in the IT field. I guess why don't you tell the folks a little bit about that and how you think that could really help make you a good state representative?
Well, that's part of one of the reasons I was running is that we are moving into more of a digitally online environment in just every aspect of our lives. How many people here did not even know they couldn't live without a smartphone until 10 years ago when Apple said you need one?
Right.
And yet our local, state, and even our federal legislatures are replete with a lot of people who do not have technology backgrounds, and yet they are the ones putting forth laws based upon something that they really weren't trained to understand. So we really need now more than ever critical thinking and data-driven ideas, policies, and initiatives by those people who are from the science, technology areas. We need to influx those into there. I mean, I'm not saying that the people currently in legislatures don't have an understanding of it, but they don't know it. I mean, they don't know, for example, when it comes to privacy laws, what that really means, or even such a statement as, okay, you've got a website up there. Do you know what SQL injection means from the standpoint of being able to protect your data?
Yeah.
They have no desire to educate themselves about these issues is my problem. You're not expected to know everything about everything, but
Correct.
as a legislature, you should educate yourself about the things you're voting on, at the very least.
Exactly. Well, like, for example, the biggest discussion that we have going on right now related to the health crisis that we're dealing with is the issue of testing. Well, what does that really mean? Just before you joined us, Amy, Roberto and I were talking about the fact that testing includes a methodology called reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. Now, that's a mouthful.
Everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
Well, I have a bio background, so I know little.
There you go. But that's the point, is that when how does that virus actually get detected by that particular type of methodology? So understanding that, not just saying, oh, we have enough tests. Well, that doesn't really tell you anything. Like you noted, Amy, legislators need to go out and actually read up on research and understand it themselves and have a real understanding about how to approach these type of methodology before making laws, bills, or even discussions, because otherwise they go into it with whatever information has been handed to them on a Post-it note.
Right. Whatever talking points Alec gives to them that week.
Yeah, good point.
All right, so we talked a little bit about some of the things that need to be that you feel we need to be focusing on and dealing with, and some of the stuff, obviously, the infrastructure and training in the new economy. I mean, that stuff costs money.
Yeah.
So I assume you have some ideas for where we might be able to raise some of this money.
I do indeed. And these are not, these may be in some ways what someone might call, new ideas, but they're just different ways of looking at it. A lot of the things that we need to look at are getting out of this mindset that you can cut your way to profitability. That has never worked in any business architecture you've everything. You cannot cut your way to profitability. So you really have to look at new revenue streams. And I look at new revenue streams from consumption-based ones, things like medical marijuana, expanded gaming. And I'm even very comfortable saying we need to have at least discussions about recreational marijuana as a consumption-based revenue stream, because there's enough money there that if we actually did something like that, we may even be able to eliminate the state income tax. There's that much revenue stream from that.
That's pretty impressive. So on your, and we're talking about some business stuff, and I don't think we really talked about kind of your, we talked about some of your technology and IT background, but we didn't really talk much about your business background. I think that might be interesting for people to hear about.
I've actually been in serial entrepreneurial type of companies most of my career. Although most recently I was working for a nonprofit, actually specifically with Goodwill, which was kind of met a particular need that I saw, which was helping people find careers, not just jobs, and using my background in technology to kind of push people forward there. But my background in being in terms of serial type of entrepreneurial companies has allowed me to understand what goes on in small business as a result from that. Even to the point now where I currently have, I hold a copyright to a software that's used for infectious disease reporting, interestingly enough, in this day and age. And I also just recently had a patent pending, although I just finished the paperwork to change that into what they call a non-provisional patent for a home healthcare IoT device for fall detection. So I do have that entrepreneurial spirit, and I do understand the challenges of small businesses and how they actually come into play, and understand what management decisions need to be made when you talk about this. But you can be a small business and be very socially conscious as a result of it. The two are not mutually exclusive.
Definitely not.
Interesting, because I think a lot of people have that idea that, you can't be a successful business and still be socially conscious. You have to be, ruthless and cutthroat, and the environment and the people be damned.
I think farmers would disagree.
Yeah. And the thing is, that is an old school mentality, frankly. That is not the way. That is not the new economy moving forward anyway. When we talk about ESG in investing, just in general, that stands for environmental, social, and governance. ESG invest, when you want to invest in companies nowadays, you look for those a lot, as opposed to whether or not that particular company pays a dividend. You also look to whether or not that matches your ESG type of way to each one of us. So I invest in a lot of companies who are environmentally, socially, and governance quality companies, not just those that can turn a dividend.
Excellent. That's great information to know. So we hear a lot about, encouraging business growth and attracting businesses to Kentucky, and we seem to have one way that we do that, and that's by giving tax breaks to businesses, and that's it. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, about tax breaks to businesses and possibly other ways that you think it might be good to attract business to Kentucky.
Well, we could have a 30-minute discussion on what a bad investment it was for Brady Industries. We can talk about that forever. That was the worst deal I'd ever seen in my entire life, and why anybody would ever go into that was beyond me. But that's a different discussion. What we really need to be doing, a strong, well-educated workforce is a big and important economic attractor for high-paying jobs for our children and the state of Kentucky. First and foremost, we need to invest in public education. I am a product of public education. I've been very successful as a result of that. I've been able to use that to become, like I said, be part of serial entrepreneurial companies, and I've been pretty successful as a result in terms of my overall personal growth, my personal financial growth from that. But we would do that by investing in the community. You do that by investing in public education. You do that by investing in the economic centers of our state. Those areas like infrastructure, roads, even green spaces, and all of our parks and recreations. Those are actually economic attractors. And when it comes to tax incentives, those should be used to invest in human capital, not capital equipment. When you invest in the people of companies, you actually end up growing your overall economic base that you can use as a tax base going forward. For example, what I mean by using as tax incentives is instead of giving a company, by the way, a couple of years ago, the federal government just gave companies a $1 trillion tax cut, in which part of that was that they could buy a piece of equipment and write the cost of the equipment off in 1 year, as opposed to a 3-year or 5-year depreciation. Well, since as a result of that, there's no reason to give a company tax incentive to buy a piece of equipment. Instead, what we should do, which also solves a business need, is to invest in the human capital of a company. You say, I'll tell you what, if you move your company here, we will give you tax incentives to invest in your personnel for either reskilling them or even doing such things as providing in-company childcare or helping to pay down student loan debt. Invest in the human capital, and you're going to get a much greater return because you're going to get higher paying, higher quality jobs and greater retention, and those businesses will be able to retain those workers for a longer period.
And I think you also, that's a great point. You also get the added knock-on effect of when you're investing in your people capital and paying them well, they then pay that into the economy as they buy things. And it has that knock-on effect into growing the economy rather than buying a piece of equipment, which may come from anywhere, maybe in Kentucky, probably outside of Kentucky. It's a one-time thing, and it doesn't have any knock-on effect to reinvesting in the Kentucky economy.
Oh, exactly. That's precisely the point. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Excellent. So one thing we've been asking everybody is obviously with what's going on with the stay-at-home orders and the coronavirus, COVID-19 novel coronavirus. That's had an impact on people's campaignings and campaign strategies. And while we won't ask you to give away any secret strategies for your campaign, I think people are curious as to what kind of an effect that has had on your campaign and how that's made you adjust your plans.
Oddly enough, not too much, because of the size of the geographic area of District 36. It's very, very difficult to do the traditional door knocking anyway. Plus, on top of that, the areas that are in there are much more high-end type environments, and they're deed restricted communities. And in a lot of those deed restricted communities, they have restrictions about door-to-door solicitation. Now, I know that legally you can do political door knocking, and that's not considered any sort of invasion of privacy. But people live in these districts and in these protected communities for a reason. They're what I call fiercely private individuals, and I get it. I live in these areas. I understand how they think, and I'm very much the same way. So we had already put together a method, or actually a strategy, of doing much more of a data-driven, digitally centric type of campaigning anyway, which is actually going to be to work with the different type of social media platforms that are out there to kind of really sort of push that. For example, we've already done a lot of Facebook advertisement, Instagram type of environment. We're working on, I'm actually working right now. I've actually opened up a YouTube channel, and I'm going to be trying to put some presentations and some scattered videos out there as well about different topics and different aspects of that.
Oh, excellent.
And then really then utilize the data-driven aspects of being able to reach those individuals that are out there and target people about the issues that they are concerned about the most, so I can get those message out there to them directly. We still will do some campaign strategies for things like in communities like what are in District 36. They still have paper boxes, so we'll probably still go around and put mailers in the paper boxes
Right.
for those type of things that people don't have access to. But that will be more the exception rather than the rule. But we're going to be much more data driven and do much more of a digitally centric type of thing. Now, the biggest challenge I think all the campaigns face is how do you do fundraising in these type of events or these type of work. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit more difficult, I think, because quite often people want to, don't mind donating, but they generally want to have some sort of interaction with you in some way, shape, or form. So maybe using the digital platforms for town halls would probably be a way to look at that, but I haven't really worked that out yet.
Excellent. Well, good. So I'm glad you had a strategy in place that lent itself to the current environment, so that wasn't too disruptive to you.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
That's great. So speaking of campaigning, if people want to find out more about you and your campaign, maybe get involved, maybe donate,
Awesome.
Where should they check out?
Awesome. Well, the very first place is go to www.grammer4house.com. That's GRAMMER, the number 4 house.com. I'm available via Facebook at the same address, Grammer4House. Twitter, Grammer4House. Instagram, Grammer4House as well. Any number of different ways. You can reach me by email the same way at jeff@grammer4house.com. Any different way. I know I'm a computer geek. If there's any digital platform out there, I am probably on it.
Do you have a TikTok?
I do actually. Yeah, I do.
I'm not sure about TikTok. I've been on there and checked it out a couple times. I'm like, I think I might be getting a little too old to understand TikTok.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do one even better than that. I actually am on Twitch.
Ooh. Now, you see, Twitch I get, but that's because I used to be a gamer, so.
Yeah, okay.
I get Twitch.
I'm on Twitch.
Yeah. See, even Amy's on Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not on Instagram or any of the other ones. Facebook is the devil.
No, TikTok's okay. It's basically Vine, right? They did away with Vine, and
yeah.
TikTok's basically Vine.
I will say this. This is one of the, if you don't mind me just taking a little bit of a detour a little bit, that's one of the things, I hear what you say, Amy, about, Facebook being the devil kind of thing. And I just had a post recently on Facebook about social media platforms, especially as it relates to the current environment that you're in with our COVID.
I read that. I was checking you out before this interview. So I actually read that just now, not too long ago.
Yeah, that's, yeah. They have not gone far enough in actually understanding what needs to be put out there. They've allowed too much disinformation from the standpoint that they're not really, they're still focused too much on clicks per site than they are about curating knowledge.
Yes.
And in this environment, we really need to make sure that what's going on the social media platforms is relevant, accurate, and scientifically provable and reliable. Because if not, then it lends itself to those type of weird conspiracy theories like 5G was the cause of this.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish I was making that up.
No,
I
actually posted on my Facebook page today about a guy who works on 5G networks. He provisions 5G devices, and he said he was reviewing his 5G devices, and he realized that he had accidentally changed the setting to distribute COVID rather than force you to be gay. So
Oh, dude.
yeah. So,
when we talk
You
about,
laugh, but like people live and die by some of this craziness.
I know. I mean, well, that's the thing is that when we talk about viruses in the digital world, it's a completely different meaning.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and we wish you much luck in your campaign.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And if I could take one more moment,
Sure.
I really want to take a moment to remember and thank all of our first responders, our healthcare workers, our researchers, our pharmacists, our physicians assistants, even biostatisticians and epidemiologists, as well as truck drivers, grocery workers, telecom people, electrical energy, and even veterinarians. We have really learned through this who really are the important people that drive our economy and drive America, not those who are sitting in the halls of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to make sure that I do a shout out and a thank you to all of them for their dedication, their skill, and just the work that they do.
No, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
we agree.
Absolutely.
And good luck, Jeff. Like I said, I used to live in your district, so
I wish you still did.
so I know it, and it's probably going to be a little rough for you. So good luck to you. I wish you the best.
Oh, well, thank you.
And we'll put the website and the social media contacts in the details for this podcast. So for those of you listening, if you want to get that down, you can check that out in the details for the podcast. So give Jeff a look on the internet and send him a message and ask him questions, let him know, bug him, get involved and donate.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Take care.
That's going to about wrap it up for this week's edition of Left in Kentucky, and hope you guys enjoyed that. We've got a good show coming up next week on our podcast. We're going to have State Representative Rachel Roberts from over in Campbell County. Yay! Rachel was just elected to replace Dennis Keene in a special election right before we were all sent to our rooms for several months.
Yeah.
And is turning around and having to run in the regular election this year. So anyway, she'll be here to talk about her experience and going into the General Assembly and kind of giving us a wrap up of what happened in the General Assembly from her perspective. So we'll definitely look forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, other than that, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us. And
thanks for listening. We appreciate all the patronage.
Definitely. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends, neighbors, enemies, frenemies, anybody and everybody. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We'd appreciate that. If there's somebody you'd like to see on the show, send us an email or a message and let us know.
Stay safe out there, guys.
Everybody stay healthy. Until next week, this is Roberto Henriquez.
Amy Ferguson.
Left in Kentucky, the podcast of indivisible Northern Kentucky.